I just wanted you to address that Adam Cole promo and then sort of contrasting with the WWE main run, if okay.
Yeah. It may have been counterproductive of me not to address this earlier, but
What up, everyone? Shakiel Mahjouri here for CBS Sports, and you know who this is. He is the former two-time NXT champion. He's a killer in the ring, and he'll kill you with kindness outside of it. Killer Kross, how's it going, my man?
very good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for making the time today. There's so much to talk about. You've been doing the media circle. I saw you on Busted Open. I saw you with Chris Van Vliet, but I got a burning question that never got answered. Are we going to see the Rabbit Tribe reunite?
It's always possible. You know, Lucha Underground left a very big impression on me, and I get asked that question all the time. Anything is possible.
Amazing. Would love to see it. Maybe let's try to avoid murdering our fellow colleagues, though, this time around.
I don't know. That's sort of the fun of it. So no promises on that.
Amazing. Now, before we get going, because I always forget, guys, if you're a new or returning viewer and you haven't yet subscribed, that is the best way you can help the channel grow. So if you like what you see, please join the team. Love to engage with all of you. You're going to get this asked all the time. I think probably this will come out like 1 to 2 weeks before from now. Is there any update you can give us on some of your long-term plans?
I'm interested in working with many companies, several companies. I'm in conversations with a few of them, not all of them. And I'm a very big believer in protecting and preserving surprises.
Yes.
So as much as I would love to spill some tea on the subject, I have to refrain from it because it will only take away from what could potentially happen. And things are looking pretty promising. So
amazing. Well, that's great to hear. Why don't you give us some fake news to throw people off the scent, and in turn, that'll give a great headline that everyone can run with. I'm kidding, of course. You did post some teases. I talked to Adam Scherr recently, formerly Braun Strowman. I know you both have been teasing a little bit of narrative content along with EC3. So I was wondering, what sort of role do you want to take in shaping the narrative in this next stage? Because when I sort of gauge the reaction online, it kind of seems like a love or hate thing. It's very divisive. There's a lot of people who really love that idea of sort of a gritty cinematic universe, and there are others who maybe feel like it strays too much from the norm. What do you want to bring into that growing brand of the narrative?
well, on that subject of people having varying opinions on the concept of the narrative, I do very strongly believe that professional wrestling and sports entertainment, there's a huge difference. To enjoy these things, it comes from a very subjective place.
Mm-hmm.
It comprises a lot of different things. And I know some people just like their pro wrestling to be specifically sport based, and that's it. However, it is 2022, and there are thousands of programs that are produced by major companies and people who have been in the business for 35 to 40 years that discuss behind the scenes. And I think we're long past attempting to misdirect people about what it is that we're doing. That's not to say that we shouldn't protect certain aspects of it so that you continue to enjoy it. Magicians don't just explain to you how they do all of their tricks, but you do have a general understanding of what you're getting into when you're watching it.
Yeah.
But I think that control your narrative is going to continue to be a refreshing concept for people who really enjoy pro wrestling. And you're going to be able to see things within this that you're not going to be able to see in other formats that are dictated by third parties and sponsorships and endorsements and specific television pattern programming that would not allow you to see this stuff. So it's an alternative, and people are always looking for alternatives once they've had enough of something. What I'm looking to contribute towards it specifically will be another layer. I'm not interested in just jumping into this to participate like anything I'm involved with. I would like to add a new layer, and without spoiling the ideas moving forward, we're going to take things to another level.
Amazing. Well, I'm very excited to see quite a group. Adam Scherr will not call it a faction or a stable. It's an idea. It's a movement. It's a reawakening. But I do love the roster of talent that's beginning to assemble under that banner. One thing that really piqued my interest, obviously, prior to joining up with WWE, a lot of fans were interested in having you in AEW, and the question has been brought up with Tony Khan year after year about, is this person signing, is that person signing? But I've noticed sort of like a tonal shift heading into 2022 where AEW has amassed such a roster that now we're talking about bloat. Now we're talking about can they give everyone they need the TV time? To turn that lens towards independent wrestler who's open to signing with major companies like yourself, how do you assess how good of a fit AEW could be for you now compared to, let's say, a year ago or 2 years ago? Because their space in the market has changed. In one sense, they're bigger, they're better. In the other sense, there is a lot more. There's only so many hours of TV to spread across with so many talent. Where do you see that fit for you and for other independent wrestlers now compared to a couple years ago?
Well, for me, I feel like the fit would be just as identically good
Mm-hmm.
before I signed with WWE as it would be now, because I am always looking to integrate and to create things that are not presently within the programming. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't say that in a derogatory way. I just mean typically how I approach things is I look at what's on the show. I look at how everyone is um, introducing ideas and concepts into the program. And I go, well, what's something that I can do that no one else is doing? And I think that's the best way to improve a show. Every single person that's a part of a show should be attempting to contribute something from their individual standpoint to improve the entire show. So there are things that have not been done yet, or haven't been done at all, or I don't think will be done, that I could do. So on that front, it looks very good to me. As opposed to everyone else, I don't really know if I feel confident, or it's my place to comment on
Mm-hmm.
the opportunities of others that are currently there or could potentially be there, just because it doesn't seem fair. But I think that if everyone approaches professional wrestling from that state of mind and that philosophy to exercise, what can I do that other people cannot do? Um, I think everyone's going to be okay. They'll at least have a minute in the spotlight, and that's better than nothing if you're a starving artist.
For sure. I love the way you draw in. Obviously, pro wrestling is at its best when the performers can draw from their own interests and their own experiences and incorporate that into the product. We did an interview with Malachi Black recently, and obviously his fascination with the occult is something that you see transformed in this character. What is sort of one genre of entertainment or one other industry that you think has stuff to offer that maybe hasn't been tapped into enough when it comes to taking those elements and bringing them into wrestling?
For an extended period of time, I was a director of nightlife security operations for
Mm-hmm.
a series of nightclubs in Las Vegas. And one of them, we had Cirque du Soleil inside the nightclub.
I
And
do like
so,
Cirque du Soleil.
man, I lived in Vegas for years, and I saw every single show multiple times. I got to know Guy. He was one of the owners. I knew, hung out with all of the performers. We had trained together. I got really close with that theater community, and it's a very unique theater community. It's unlike a lot of others. And when I would watch these shows, they would inspire me, like anyone could be inspired by a novel or a book or a movie, to incorporate certain things or just think differently. And I admittedly had used different ideas and concepts I was inspired by in our entrance with Scarlett and I for Karrion Kross, and Scarlett with NXT.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are aspects of Cirque du Soleil and just different theatrical concepts that could be integrated into professional wrestling that haven't totally been
Mm-hmm.
tapped into yet. And it will be very difficult to integrate those into wrestling if you're not really into theater. You know, another one would be like Repo, the Genetic Opera. I don't know if you're a music guy, you're a musical, but it was a horror musical, and just the setting that was set in. I just think there's things we can take from different aspects of theater. Pro wrestling is pro wrestling, and you know it will always be that to me. But it does, as I said, encompass a lot of different things, and I think it's okay to embrace that. I think it actually only improves what we can give to people if we acknowledge the fact that there are many lanes of different things in entertainment that also can be integrated.
Um, I really like sort of the contrast between, let's say, something like live theater and films, or one You have to be very big. You need to be animated for everyone from the front of the audience to the back to sort of be able to see what you're expressing. Whereas with movies, right, you got close-ups, you can be a lot more nuanced. Especially being in WWE with that production value, you kind of get the best of both worlds. For you, if you could transition into only one kind of acting, would you prefer to do something like theater on Broadway, or would you prefer to do more televisions and film?
That's
Based
really
not based on what's the most lucrative, based solely on your favorite elements of performing.
so. Money aside, I think I would rather do theater. Actually,
Very cool. Same.
yeah, I would.
Yeah, I like that. One thing before we move on to some of the more fun stuff, I put out a Q&A thread, and thank you so much for retweeting that. I appreciate it. And something a few people brought up that, well, I very much disagreed with. I did want to sort of get your feelings on. In the lead up to one of your NXT title matches, Adam Cole cut a promo in which he argued that, Karrion Kross, without the entrance and Scarlett Bordeaux's presence and all the pop and circumstance, wouldn't be much. And some people sort of conflate that with how your WWE main roster run went. I think personally that's more a consequence of creative. I think your in-ring work especially speaks for itself. And through these interviews, we've seen how sort of mindful you are of the creative end of things. But I just wanted you to address that Adam Cole promo and then sort of contrasting with the WWE main run, if okay.
Yeah, it may have been counterproductive of me not to address this earlier, but there are certain things that I think that are important to protect. So I probably never would have brought this up unless you asked. But
And
I'll
you don't
talk
have
about
to.
it.
If there's anything you don't want to talk about, that's okay.
No, it's fine. It's not that I don't want to talk about it, but it's just okay. So regarding that promo, the night before, we had received a script. So everything that he said and everything that I said was delegated to us by a writing team. And he's a total professional. He was awesome to work with. And we literally just showed up and just did our job that day like we would do any other day. He's always been the fourth wall promo guy. And they thought that would be the best way to integrate him into the Fatal 5-Way match, which is what we went to. If I recall, they were booking him with, I don't know, like 50-50 booking after he had dropped the title to Keith. And how it was explained to me was they wanted me to go up to main roster with clean kills on everybody. And time just wouldn't afford it. So they thought, how can we get the best guys in NXT into one match where Kross can go over and kill these guys? And in this business, you can't just run people over all month in promos and tag matches and stuff and then kill them clean at the pay-per-view. They get nothing. So I think the idea behind that was to let them get their licks in prior to the pay-per-view, and then they just get smashed and beat. And that was basically the idea behind it. He needed to look strong in the promo, and they're playing on the fourth wall stuff. And that's basically, I don't know what else to say.
I think that's plenty. And I appreciate you peeling back the curtain on how that came together. Yeah. Can you sort of compare and contrast the NXT writing formula and the WWE creative formula? Because, there are writers involved with both, but on the NXT end, it seems like there's a little bit more freedom or leading into who you guys are as characters.
Yeah, so in NXT, to me, my experience is more collaborative. They would ask me how I feel about something, or I could pitch an idea to them, and then we would kind of come together and we would figure out what the best course of what we would do is. So I'll give you an example. We had Code Orange play live at my first NXT takeover when I wrestled Ciampa. And I thought it was in your house. And I thought it would be kind of cool with the presentation we were doing if I came down to the ring in some sort of a mask, because Code Orange is, they perform in the style that they perform in, and it's in your house. Maybe it's like a home invasion. I had like a creepy outfit to wear. And I just finished watching The Nun. And I watched.
You're big into that whole Conjuring franchise, aren't you?
A little bit. Yeah. I watched The Nun and I watched The Town back to back. And if you remember The Town, the bank robbery movie, they were wearing nun masks when they were robbing the bank. And so I had one of those. So I was going to come down to the ring with the leather jacket and the nun mask. And it was right after Code Orange had gone on. Hunter saw it and he was like, hey, he's like, I appreciate your level of creativity. However, it's not a good idea to put the mask on you because people are still getting to know your face, and this will take away from footage that we can show. If we want to chop things up, people won't know who you are in the highlights. And he just explained to me the benefit of not wearing this versus coming down to the ring and wearing it. And so it wasn't a, hey, what are you doing? Or, you know, waving your finger. He explained to me the benefits of not wearing it as opposed to the consequences of it. And I was just like, he's totally right. You know, and so that would be like an example of, you know, a time where, you know, I wanted to do something and I was advised not to do it. And it was a very civil, intellectual conversation and a reason provided as to why you wouldn't want to do something like that.
Are you okay if we go a little bit longer? Because you just keep bringing up stuff that keeps kind of just like popping stuff off my head. I've had the fortune of talking to you now, Malachi, a few others who were sort of in that era of Triple H's NXT, which unfortunately seems to sort of be disappearing. I just wanted to gather your thoughts on working with Triple H and how you reflect on his time and his vision of NXT.
It was awesome. He, to me, is a natural leader. He's not someone that ever had to raise his voice. He's not someone who ever had to get angry for people to listen to him. He was a person where I would I'd come into work and he would be completely focused with each and every single person he was working with. I never saw him play favorites. He never told you what you wanted to hear. He always told you what you needed to hear. And he inspired people to be better versions of themselves at work. I could tell you without putting anybody's names out there because it's their stories to tell one day, but like I could tell you for sure, as much as people wanted to perform in this business for the fans, they also wanted to perform out of respect for Hunter and Sean because of how much time they would put into them and helping them improve. And yeah, it was awesome. It was definitely one of the first people I met in the business where I was like, oh, like they always say, never meet your heroes, right? I was like, I really hope that this is, I had a good feeling about it from the get-go, but he's definitely somebody for me personally as a person that totally didn't disappoint at all. Like he exceeded expectations of, you know, the type of person you'd think you'd want to meet from, you know, watching on TV growing up, if I can be frank with you.
Yeah, and Triple H has done so much in this industry, but man, I think when you look back on it, when the final chapter is written in that book, that people are going to look back very fondly and very favorably on what he accomplished with NXT, and especially based on everyone I've talked to, just nothing but positivity. I've legitimately not heard a bad thing from anyone that I've asked about Triple H, especially as it pertains to NXT.
Sure.
Last thing on NXT, you recently talked about how, you know, you were getting some favorable chants from the audience, and that's sort of counterintuitive to the character you're playing. So when we cut to commercial, you'd go out there and you'd haze, you'd flip people off like your grandmother would, and you were yelling at people. And I was wondering, one, what was the backstage reaction to that hazing? Because I imagine although NXT is a bit more of a adult-friendly environment, it's still sort of under this WWE umbrella. And secondly, what's sort of the meanest thing you've done to a fan during a commercial break? Or ever?
Oh boy. Well, I don't know if I had mentioned this either, but there were people with like Gargano shirts on, and I would drag Johnny over in front of them and beat the shit out of them in front of them. I mean, that's not like mean, but like
that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean that's just amazing. I'm used to. I love working a live crowd, and for not having them for so long. I used to just play with people on the independents as much as I possibly could. You want to engage people. You see a kid in the audience that's in the front row, and I'm going to take, his guy in front of him, and I'm going to chop him point blank in front of the kid. They go home with that, and that stays with them forever. But there wasn't any sort of backstage reaction to that because we all, as seriously as we take this, we're all having fun.
Yeah.
And we all have our individual unique ways to have fun. There's some guys that are jokers in the ring, and they're they're saying stuff in the middle of the match. I'm not going to repeat it, but there's a whole other world of things going on in front of people's eyes every single time it's on television that they will never see, never hear. And that's just between us. But I was never given any grief about that whatsoever at all. And I was so discreet. I bet you they didn't even know I was doing that, because I would do it on the opposite side of hard camera. But that was just, for me, I wasn't necessarily doing that to get heat or to try to be like edgy or something. I was doing it to try to help my guy in the ring. I wasn't doing it for my own benefit of getting booed. The way I would always look at it is, if I'm working heel, I really need to do my best to make sure that the crowd is behind my guy. And now some people who are veterans may argue, they may say, no, forget him. It's his job to get the crowd on his side. I don't look at it like that. I don't approach things like that. I like
collaborative environment.
Exactly. Yeah. Cooperative. You know what I mean? If I have a real problem with the guy, I'm not going to be juvenile and bury him in the ring. I'll take it up with him like a grown man in the parking lot, or however we got to do it, having a civil conversation. But I'm not one of those people. I want to get the best of the time we are allotted. And, I just to pop myself and to help him, that was the way I decided to do it. And it worked. So.
Without peeling back the curtain too much, and you can skip it because I know you already said you're going to keep that story to yourself, but who in the ring makes it the hardest to keep a straight face?
Oh, man. Just because of our relationship, probably John Morrison, because we're very close. And when you work with somebody so many times, you just get more comfortable with them. You learn each other's rhythm and timing in the ring. And John and I have worked all over the world together. And so typically if we're working, especially if it's not TV, we are not limited to things we can do in the ring. We can create whatever story we want for the fans. Depending on what city we're in, we'll feel the crowd. We'll look at what's going on. We'll see who's on the card. And we'll be like, what's the best we can get out of this time on the card? And we'll have fun. And I think that when people can feel that you're having fun in the ring, they will also have fun in return. It's infectious. And him and I worked quite a bit on house shows. And I will tell you, and it's a shame, but the best reactions I'd ever gotten were on the house shows on main roster. And they're not televised, and my times weren't cut. I wasn't limited to anything I could do in the ring. People weren't telling me that I couldn't do certain moves. I was able to just work with the rhythm of the audience and not have to worry about times being cut and have to change directions and stuff like that. I really wish people could have saw that, but at least the live crowds did. And but yeah, John, I would say, is the hardest person to keep a straight face with.
Well, you guys have had everything from like headlining matches against each other in Impact to, squirt guns in the ring on Monday Night Raw. So I've seen the full spectrum, in part, minus the house shows. As we wrap up here, and I want to give Alicia Toot, the interview queen, credit for coming up with this question the first time I ever saw it. I'd like your childhood gimmick and your childhood finishing move.
Oh. Childhood gimmick was probably something of a cross between the Ultimate Warrior and Diesel. So imagine Diesel 7 feet tall with face paint and screaming. Just like most of them. Maybe that's a little bit of Sid too. And then finishing move was probably like a power bomb where the guy hits his head on the ceiling and then gets like power bombed on the top of his head 4 or 5 times and then thrown through like a small like table or like a coffee table or something. Definitely got thrown into something. And then the pin was super aggressive. Like the leg was so over the head. You know what I mean?
Well, WWE says don't try this stuff at home. So there you go.
Yeah, maybe don't.
Did you have a ring name as a kid?
I think it changed every time. I don't recall having at least anything notable.
I'm gonna possibly get you in trouble with a lot of people. I don't need any context, just your top 3 Grand Theft Auto games. In order.
So it's been a long time since I played Grand Theft Auto, but I'm gonna say the best one, my favorite one, was Vice City.
Okay. And
then we'll say the Grand Theft Auto that came out, I guess the most recent one.
5, with the 3 characters, yeah.
Yes. And then Grand Theft Auto 3 as my third favorite.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that. Last thing, I can tell we're both... No, totally kidding. No love for San Andreas, man. But that's okay. I can tell that you're big into horror movies, as am I. So I'd love to just end it here more for my personal satisfaction. What do you think horror allows that other genres can't capture when it comes to telling a storytelling?
Approaching subject matter that is really uncomfortable and
Mm-hmm.
sitting in it for an extended period of time. And I think, my opinion, from a sociological standpoint, people typically have a hard time discussing things that bother them.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing bothers people worse than the idea of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
You can apply uncertainty to most things in your life and you don't like it. If you are uncertain of when you're going to pass away, if you are uncertain of when you're going to get paid, if you are uncertain of when a check is going to clear, if you're uncertain of when the engine light in your car is going to go on, nobody likes that. And so if you apply that to, you are uncertain if your house is haunted, you are uncertain if someone you know is being possessed, or uncertain that this guy that you had arrested, once he gets out of jail, is going to come flying through your living room window. I think that that is alluring to some people, to sit in a film and to be in that place and to go through those emotions in the safety of your living room or a movie theater and not actually have to go through it. And I just think that in life in general, it's difficult to discuss things that bother you. And I find that for some people, it's somewhat therapeutic to go into that place and know that you're going to get out of it in an hour, 30 minutes to 2 hours. And maybe you'll feel better about getting closer to something that bothers you that much. You may build a constitution towards other things that scare you in real life.
One movie people should see tonight in the horror genre.
Videodrome by David Cronenberg.
You're a big Cronenberg fan, I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there it is. As we wrap up here, because you've been way too generous with your time, on my end of that conversation, there's a movie called His House I'd highly recommend. I think it's on Netflix. It's about a husband and a wife that immigrate from South Sudan, escaping war, and their process of trying to, immigrate into the UK, and sort of like a spirit, a witch from South Sudan follows them there. But what I love about it, and this is sort of a well I've been falling into, the story is not about them being haunted. It's about the trauma and the PTSD and the guilt of living in a place where there's war and escaping, and people they've had to wrong in order to try and create a better life for themselves. And what I love is when you watch, let's say, something like Schindler's List, that's a little bit more, it's a little bit more authentic, grounded in reality. There's only so many sort of emotions you can take. Guilt, disturbance, grief. But when you look at those ideas through the lens of horror, you can now draw other emotions to tell real life stories. Trauma, terror, and an inability to get over your past. And there's a way that you can't, it's difficult to sort of translate those ideas without bringing in a more like supernatural or fictional element. So His House is one I'd highly recommend. It's legitimately scary. And again, I like that it's not so much, when you really peel it back, it's not about them being haunted. It's about the traumas they've experienced and how that sort of followed them in their new life. So that's just my spiel. I had to get that out with someone who could relate.
Sure.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to give you the last word here. So I'm going to do my part right now very quickly. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video. Thank you to CBS Sports, as always, for empowering the video. Full written feature at cbssports.com in the bio of this video. If you can, please subscribe, notification bell, thumbs up. All that goes a long way to helping the channel grow. Kevin, Killer Kross, formerly Karrion Kross, whatever's next, whatever you'd like to share, let the people know. Now's your chance.
Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for having me. And for anyone listening, if you're interested to catch up on my social media and find out where I am and what I'm doing, it's Real Killer Kross on Instagram and Twitter. And there's a link tree attached on every single bio. It has everything that I'm doing, from merch to dates, a YouTube channel that I created completely for free, all free content for people to submerge themselves into what I'm doing creatively. And thank you very much for everyone's support. I sincerely appreciate it. And I can't wait to be back in front of you guys on TV really soon.
Amazing. We'll have that link tree in the bio of this. Well, make it nice and accessible.